I think in terms of, transferability and pivoting from one industry to the next, you know, I think sales is such a great example to use. I had a friend who recently like had to go through a bit of a shift in their career. He worked for Nestle for years, and this is probably 2, 3 years, maybe even 6 or 7 years ago when we connected. Now that I think about it, but he was with Nestle in their CPG, consumer packaged goods division, and he was selling water. So he was like selling, water to Save on Foods and Safeway, the 24 packs, whatever it may be, that are on their shelves. And he, I think, either exited or was exited from his role and was looking to figure out like what his next move could be. And so, the things that I walked through with him was, what is the type of sale that you're doing? Who are your like clients? Who's in your network? And what are your like accomplishments, to understand how like, easy it is for you to cross over. And so the first one was, as a salesperson, his job wasn't convincing Save on Foods to carry Nestle water. Save on Foods carries like a million Nestle products, right? Those relationships are established somewhere. That wasn't his job. He was an account manager. It was his job to, rub shoulders with the general manager and make sure he got the end caps or the visible spaces, and look at what the competitors in the market are doing, come up with better pricing strategies, promotions, flip the guy Canucks tickets here or there, and try to find a way to make sure your product's selling over, Coke's Dasani version, right? And so I was like, that's very much different than, for example, when I started Express for my first 3 years, every single day, 5 days a week, I was on the road, going into buildings, going in offices, going top to bottom, walking into a business cold and saying, my name's Brent. I've just started this company. This is what we do. Is there someone here I can talk to see if there's an opportunity for us to do business together? Very, very different approach to sales. And then you get people who are in sales, but they're really just customer service people, and that's okay too. And again, it's like, it's about being honest with yourself. Like, what were you doing? If you were doing, sales, but from a high level, then the question is like, okay, were you working with sales managers to help them manage their team? Were you managing salespeople directly? Did you guys have like outbound call centers? Did you have inbound call centers? Like, what did sales truly look like? What did marketing truly look like? Like, what was your involvement in it? So the next piece with my friend there was the relationships that he had. And so one of the things he was like, oh, I've always kind of thought about commercial real estate. And it's like, okay, great. The challenge for him was he had a pretty wide network of people that he'd been dealing with in the space. My belief was, and he was the one who ultimately had to figure it out, was that, the general manager of the local, Lynn Valley Save on Foods where I am is probably not the guy negotiating the lease there. Right. And so you've got the relationship with a high level decision maker, but how high level and to what decisions, right? And so if you wanted to go commercial real estate, like, does your network truly provide that value specific to sales? Now, if you're in operations, like, I don't know, what is that? Is it, that you've got a network of, I don't know, maybe you're in some sort of fleet business and a ton of mechanics and a ton of, tow truck companies and vehicle suppliers. Like, again, it's just trying to figure out, what can you leverage to add value? And then again, the last one I tied in for him was like what he was able to accomplish. And I think this is like, especially for sales, one of the easiest ways to understand somebody's level, which is, I could tell you every year for the last 6 years what my business generated in revenue, what our margins were, who contributed and in which ways, what the margins and volumes were per desk in our office. Like, I could tell you all that. I could tell you what I accomplished when I was in my previous company and in my sales roles prior to that, because it's something after the fact that I realized that I may need to better understand. And so the more you know about truly how the business works, how your direct sales contributions worked. Like, again, if he was selling water and he goes, yeah, I had $1 million territory or $10 million territory. Well, was it profitable? Like, do you
Mhm.
even know that? Like you could be doing 10 million in sales and the company's losing $100,000 a year because it's not a profitable industry. Like, good for you for the 10,000 or the 10 million in sales, but it's very different if the company made $500,000 a year after all expenses and salaries paid. Like, then now we're talking about something great, right? So I think it's really like interesting and important to understand that, because of course I've talked to many salespeople that are, they say they're the top salesperson in their company, and I go, based on what? And they're like, why, I do the most, like, volume. And it's like, well, who's ultimately generating the most revenue for the company? And they go, well, what do you mean? And it's like, well, sales are one thing, but do you know what the margins are that the products are being sold at? Do you know what the ultimate like bottom line is? Do if you did 1 million in sales this year, same question. And they go, well, that's not something we're exposed to. Again, that's fine. And if the person, if we have the time, I'll maybe like coach them on that. But like that ultimately is that kind of piece of them understanding truly what their contributions are.